What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon back with another deck analysis. This is actually going to be a re-recording. There was some issues with the previous recording, so I'm going to re-record it and upload it. But again, today we're talking about Gallentmon. EX02 came out, and honestly, most of the decks that I've seen, I just really enjoy. I'm a huge Tamers fan, and Gallentmon is definitely something that I've enjoyed. But yeah, we're going to be starting off with our Digi-Eggs. We're running 4 copies of the EX2 Digimon and 1 copy of Gurimon here. Gurimon is a good Digimon if you still want the draw power, as late game, since the majority of our Digimon that have 6,000 DP or more are going to be in our level 5s. Getting that extra draw 1 if we have War Growlmon out can help us get into our level 6s maybe. And then Gigimon here, if this Digimon has Guilmon, Growlmon, or Gallentmon in its name, you draw 1 when attacking, once per turn. As for our level 3s, we're running 3 copies of Gammamon, 3 copies of EX1's Biomon, 4 copies of the EX2 Guilmon, and 4 copies of Starter Deck 7 Guilmon. So the reason we're running Biomon here is it's a good alternative if you don't have easy access to the promo Guilmon, as that one has been rising up in price since a lot of people have been wanting to use it. Its main inherited effect is when attacking once per turn. When this Digimon attacks a player, draw 1. So normally you would want to use it if you're already in your level 5s to have a better chance of surviving the hit. Our starter deck, or BT8 Gammamon here, is actually, in my opinion, a bit of an underrated card. You're going to be able to get that draw 1 when you play a red tamer. So if in your first few turns, if you're playing Takato or Hero, getting that draw 1 is nice. And then its inherited is essentially a similar thing to Guilmon's from EX2, where when attacking, if the Digimon has 6,000 DP or more, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. For EX2 Guilmon, he has a similar thing, except if it's when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Growlmon or Gallentmon. Same deleting with 3,000 DP or less. It also has the on-play of revealing top 4 cards of your deck, adding 1 Digimon with Growlmon or Gallentmon in its name, and 1 Takato, and then placing the remaining at the bottom. Guilmon here is basically the red version of that, as Terriermon, Renamon, Impmon, and Monodramon all have the same kind of thing going for them, where you're revealing top 4, you're finding a further evolution from Tamers, and then the corresponding Tamer card, and then just adding them to your hand. Our starter deck 7 Guilmon here also has a draw 1 effect from his inherited. Basically, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, you get to trigger draw 1. It's a once per turn, but definitely that is good if you're having Gallentmon and you want to go into your Crimson mode, or War Growlmon going into Gallentmon. Getting that draw 1 is very nice. He also has the capability of warping into Gallentmon if your opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon in play. Though the one caveat to that is, because it relies on your opponent having a level 6 or higher, if your opponent is using, say, D-Reaper, you won't be able to use that effect ever, because D-Reapers have no levels. Going on to our level 4s, we are running 1 copy of a Gunimon. A Gunimon is here mainly as our hybrid win condition. If we aren't able to swing with anything else and we have a Gunimon in hand, we just go into that for the game. Otherwise, we are also running 4 copies of EX2 Growlmon. His when attacking, deleting an opponent's Digimon with 2,000 DP or less. You're never going to really use that effect unless you're using its secondary bonus effect of, if you have a red tamer, you are deleting a 4,000 DP or less instead of the 2,000. You're mainly sticking him around in for his inherited of deleting another 3,000 DP, which you're going to stack on with a couple other things in order to raise the amount of DP threshold. We'll also be running 2 copies of Starter Deck 1 Greymon. The reason we're running him is mainly for that security inheritable, wanting to speed up the aggression for our Gallentmon of just swinging, taking a lot more of your opponent's security out. And if we're going into our Crimson mode, even better because we're trashing their security as well. Finally, we're running 4 copies of the Starter Deck 7 Growlmon. Reason we're running him is mainly that gaining memory from his inherited. It's a once per turn when opponent's Digimon is deleted, gain 1 memory. Having that and just swinging, gaining memory, being able to choke our opponent if they don't have a memory tamer to set them to 3 is very useful. Moving on to our level 5s, we are running 2 copies of Rise Greymon from BT4. So this is a card you could also swap out with the Starter Deck 7 War Growlmon, and we'll talk about that a little later. But the reason Rise Greymon is a good card for this deck is if you are in your early game and you need to get your Tamer out, but you don't want to risk the potential of like giving your opponent too much memory, using his Digiburst effect to be able to just play your hero or your Tocado for free, and then going straight into your Gallentmon to give it Blitz if it's Tocado is going to be very crucial. We'll also be running 4 copies of War Growlmon. Basically, he has a similar effect to the Growlmon, where you delete an opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP or less, and if you have a red tamer, it becomes a 6,000. His inherited is actually really nice because you're just adding 1,000 to the maximum DP you can choose with DP-based deletion effects. And this is actually something that is going to foreshadow his X-Antibody variants in BT9, where a lot of that line has that exact same inherited effect, actually. So it's a nice little foreshadowing for when we get BT9 later on in the month. Moving on to our level 6s, we are running 3 copies of EX02 Gallentmon. I love this card. During your turn, he'll be bumped straight to 14,000 as he'll get 2,000 DP. While you have a red tamer in play, you're going to be able to add 2,000 DP to the maximum amount of DP-based deletion effects. So, for example, if you are using his later effect, where you can delete any number of your opponent's Digimon whose total DP adds up to 6,000, that automatically becomes 8,000. And if you're on top of War Growlmon here, that's 9,000. So you'll have more free reign to choose what Digimon you want to delete on your opponent's field. In the case of if you're in a D-Reaper matchup, the majority of your opponent's Digimon in D-Reaper are about 3,000, especially if they're running a lot of the Searcher cards. So you'll be able to board clear a bit easier with that. We'll also be running 2 copies of the Starter Deck 7. This is a card you could actually swap out with the older version of Gallentmon, which I'll also talk about in a bit. But the reason I run this one is mainly for that security +1 aggression. Also, being able to get that further deletion effect of deleting one of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP, in which case if it's on War Growlmon, it's 5,000. And then otherwise, you're going to gain plus 3,000 DP for the turn if you don't delete anything. So that's going to bump him to 14,000, making it a lot easier to swing over things in security. Finally, for our level 7, we're running 2 copies of Crimson Mode. You really only need 2 copies of Crimson Mode, to be honest, in my opinion. 3 is a bit much. But it's when Digivolving, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP. And then when attacking, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. Add 1 to the number of cards trashed by this effect for every 10 cards in your opponent's trash. This works very well when you're going against, say, Beelzemon. Because Beelzemon decks are all about trashing things from your deck into your trash and just having a huge trash pile. This can also work decently well in D-Reaper, but that is the main issue, is that it's very situational. Depending on your matchup, this effect might not even mean much. You'll only just trash 1 of your opponent's security before going in for the attack. Mind you, you're still like, if you're pairing it with something that'll give him extra security checks, that's still about 3 checks, 2 checks maybe, plus the trashing, so you're taking out half of your opponent's security. But getting that huge like trashing effect and then killing off the rest of their security is very nice. Onto our option cards, we're running 2 copies of Judgment of the Blade. This is mainly here to deal with our D Reaper issues, because since the majority of all of our Gallentmons have Royal Knight in their type, we'll be able to attack unsuspended Digimon. Outside of being added to our hand from his security, we don't have any Sistermon, so that's the little bit of a bad side to it, but that's about it. We'll also be running 3 copies of what I like to call Pyrosphere, and you're only really running this for its draw 2. The 3000 TP is not really what you're looking for. You want that draw 2 early game in order to just speed your way into Gallentmon. We'll also be running, for our Tamers, 3 copies of Hero Amanokawa. Hero is a great card to use, especially in this deck. If you have the Tai Kamiyas and you want to use those, by all means, be my guest. I personally like the 2000 DP gaining. And also, Tai Kamiya is expensive. So, if you want to, prioritize the security checks, Tai is good, but just be prepared if you don't already have them to have to pay some money for them. Finally, we're running 4 copies of Takato. You want to run 4 copies of Takato because you want to be able to guarantee that your Groundmons and Gallentmons gain Blitz. It's also a good way of gaining memory for all of the deletion effects you're going to be running. So that's definitely useful. Onto the different cards you might want to tech in. If you're running Rise Greymon, you might want to tech in maybe the Agumon here, mainly so that you can just return it back to your hand and have a steady source of level 3s to run. Otherwise, the promo Guilmon here is, if you have the money to get it, is nice. You would want to run about 4, because how you're going to run it is you're going to just put it on Gigimon, swing, doesn't matter if he dies or not, you're going to get that draw 2. War Groundmon here is nice for the extra security attack you can get when using deletion effects. So that's very nice. Gallentmon here is basically 1 part Gallentmon, 1 part Crimson mode. The Gallentmon part is when digivolving, if you have a red tamer in play, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. And the Crimson mode is when attacking, trash one of your opponent's security cards for every 10 cards in their trash. So the one downside to this is you want your opponent to have 10 cards because that's the only way you're going to get that trash effect. Whereas in Crimson mode, there's automatically 1 card that gets trashed, and then 1 more gets added for every 10 cards. So there's that. Now, if you don't want to run those, another card that might be useful is Shine Greymon. And the reason for this is because both Hero and Takato have suspending effects, you would be able to get Shine Greymon multiple security checks. Problem with this is guaranteeing that he gets DP. So I would only really run him if you are guaranteeing him at least 4,000 extra DP to put him to 1,500 so he can swing over a lot of things. Because being at 1,300 might not be enough. Now, if you really want to run something else, Megidramon is a nice card. I would only run 1 of him. The reason for this is his Digivolution effect is nice, but if you don't have anything that you can delete, you're going to have to trash your own deck as well. Otherwise, you get to play Guilmon and Takato from your hand or trash when he's deleted. That's not, late game, that's not really viable. Also, while he can also be treated as Chaos Gallentmon, he is not a Royal Knight, so cards like Judgment of the Blade will not affect him. So that's a bit of a bummer too. Finally, if you're not running Crimson mode, Omnimon is a good card to have, especially for a win condition, because he will have Blitz, he can be unsuspended upon Digivolution, And if you were to run into something through insecurity that would delete him, you can just return Gallentmon back to your hand in order to save him. Now, as for our option cards, Digivolution Plugin S is a great card to use. A lot of decks that I build do use this card because you are getting to draw one and a free evolution if needed. Its security effect will also let you look for Digimon through your deck, so that's nice. On the flip side, Offensive Plugin S, its security effect will look for your Tamers, which is also good if you're looking for your Takato or your Hero. And it will also give you a security tag +1, but that's it, really. Blue card, on the other hand, is actually really nice. You're revealing top 5 cards for your deck. You can Digivolve one of your Digimon into a non-white Digimon among them without paying its cost, and then if you don't, you can still add a Digimon among them to your hand. So, as a searcher and a free evolution, that is good. And then, as I mentioned, Tai Kamiya is a good memory fixer, and having a red Digimon with 4 or more Digivolution cards, giving you security tag +1, is great if you have the money for it, because right now it's about $21. And if you're running the same amount as you are Hero, that's about over $60 right there, plus shipping fees if you're doing that. So unless you're able to get it from someone who could give you a discount, I would go with Hero personally. But that is it for this deck analysis. I genuinely have actually been enjoying Gallentmon throughout my playtesting, and honestly, I hope a lot of people have been enjoying EX2 since it is going to be a short subset, as later this month we are going into BT9. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think about the deck, what you might want to change yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.